And it was made by the wood shop, and it's really quite precious. So I thank the wood shop for making me a gavel. I'm going to come kind of to the middle there, just because we didn't get a microphone. So I hope you guys can hear us, and we're going to have to kind of talk loud, but that's the best we can do for right now. So I wanted to welcome everyone. It's a great turnout. I introduced my gavel, which I'm very proud of. I was told I didn't have very good control at the last meeting, and it's true, I didn't. I'm going to try and do a little bit better, but I do like having that gavel. So thank you to those students. Thank you to everyone who took the time to come out and spend their time this evening away from family and friends to discuss this important topic in our school, our discipline plan. Our country is going through a challenging time when it comes to school safety, and that same anxiety is felt throughout our town. A fellow board member reminded me recently that as a board and our school and our community, we truly have a shared purpose, and we all want the safest environment for our students to learn and our teachers to teach. That is why we are here tonight. We are here to listen, we're here to learn from each other, and we're here to collaborate. We all have an obligation to set an example for our kids, to show respect for one another and our differences. And with that being said, I'd like Scott to introduce our presenters for tonight.
Thank you, Dee. Thank you. Jen Huffman and Peggy Pine will be presenting tonight, and after their presentation, we're going to move into the workshop part of the evening. So there's a little bit of a hint there for you on the table. You already have all the slides printed out for you, and you have some of the leading questions we'll be getting into right after the presentation.
So first of all, thank you to everybody for coming this evening. I want you to know how this plan got written down. I got a lot of feedback at the last board meeting from our community, and I feel like it is very important for me as a leader to be reflective and to accept that feedback and to utilize it to implement changes. And so we have written down a draft plan, the student support team and I, which is the 2 school social workers, the advising specialist, and myself is the student support team. And we have written down a draft plan. It is a draft. And so the reason that we have asked for this to be a workshop type session is to get your feedback to specific questions that can make this draft better before we ask the board to approve it for implementation into our handbook next year. I want to own a couple of things. The first thing that I want to own is the way that we have been administering discipline. Can you? Oh, we'll go back one. Since I have been here, and I don't know how it was before I was here, I just know that since I have been here, to me, it has felt very inconsistent. To me, it has felt quite ineffective at times. And I need to own that as the principal of the high school, and I need to work with my teams to make changes to what that looks like. And I also know that because of that, there have been trust gaps that have been created between our school and the community. And one of the things that we have really been working on, and I've got some teachers working on, are ways to get that back. Ways to get our community back into our school at the secondary level. And one thing that I'm finding out is that a blanket invitation to you to come into the school is not effective. So we're working on some other methods. So that being said, I would like to present this framework that we have written down as a draft for your feedback. So we have 3 goals with this framework, and the first one is increased consistency of application of the model. The second one is increased parent communication, and the third one is increased teacher and student support. So this is our definition of school discipline. School discipline is a required set of actions by school teachers and administration towards a student after or during a time when a student's behavior disrupts the ongoing educational activity or breaks a pre-established rule by the school system. Discipline should strive to help guide the student's behavior or set limits to help them learn to take care of themselves, to be respectful of other students, to care for the community around them. So we have established 3 levels of behavior. In education, we operate on a 3-tier pyramid. We do it for academic intervention, we do it for classroom intervention, and we do it for behavior intervention. So minor behaviors are those behaviors that a classroom teacher or the discipline and behavioral management team can handle with relatively little time work, and the student is able to return to class within the same class period. Moderate behaviors are also known as those behaviors that, while not minor, are also not major in nature. These behaviors will often be repeated minor behaviors or behaviors that are more extreme versions of minor behaviors, but not extreme enough to be major behaviors. These behaviors require removal of the student from the classroom for the remainder of the class period. Major behaviors are defined as those behaviors that require immediate response and removal of the student from the regular school environment for a longer period, which sometimes is the rest of the day and sometimes is multiple days. It just depends on the nature of the behavior. So everybody has a copy of this presentation on your table. There's at least one. There should be one with every set of pages, discussion questions. So these are what are defined as low-level minor behaviors, and these were taken out of the existing handbook. These are not policy, they are procedural practice that is in the handbook, and I've looked at the handbook quite a ways back, and they've been in there for probably 15 or 20 years. So the first one is inappropriate language. Minor is defined as a student engages in inappropriate verbal or nonverbal communication. It looks like a mild inappropriate language, like a slip of the tongue, hand gestures that are inappropriate. Generally speaking, these are pretty low level. Defiance or disrespect or non-compliance at a low level. A minor is defined as a student engages in brief or low intensity failure to respond to adult requests, looks like ignores directives 1 to 3 times, or minor disrespect directed at other students, something like telling a classmate, "God, you're stupid," or something like that. Just not being mean, but sometimes kids act like that toward each other, just kind of playing around usually. But it's still not okay. So disruption, minor is defined. The student engages in low intensity but inappropriate disruption. This looks like talking out of turn, off-task behavior, being out of their seat without permission. Lying, the student engages in low intensity dishonest behaviors like denying something minor. So when the teacher says, "Okay, you need to stop doing that," "Well, I didn't do that," that would be considered a dishonest behavior. Interpersonal conflict. Minor is defined as low-level interpersonal conflict that is reported and mediated, and that looks like a disagreement, a misunderstanding, mean or rude behavior that happens one time between students. Other minor behaviors. And of course, under any of these, we're not going to be able to define every single thing that can possibly happen. Something will come up that's not in here, and we will try to figure it out within this framework. So other minor behaviors, like a technology violation, unless what is viewed falls under moderate or major. Inappropriate use of personal and school equipment, non-compliance in completing work or participation in group activities, bugging others in the learning environment. 1 or 2 times, not consistently. So how will we handle these? We will either go to a push-in or pull out at the teacher's discretion. So when the teacher calls the office for assistance upon arrival to the classroom, the teacher will communicate with us the need for a low-level minor action to manage and provide a short-term intervention for a low-level disruptive behavior that's impacting the classroom environment. The student will engage with us to solve and be integrated back into the class as soon as possible. So what this looks like is the teacher calls for support. We go to the classroom, we say, "Mrs. Smith, do you want us to handle this in your room or outside in the hall?" And they will say, "In the room or outside in the hall," and we will review it with the student and say, "You need to do this instead of this. If I'm called back here, this is going to move this to a moderate level, and the consequence becomes more severe. So you need to get back in there, and you need to be on task and focused with what you're doing." And Most of the time, since we really wrote this down and have been practicing it, it works pretty well. I think in the days since I've been practicing it, which was beginning of last week to now, we've had one callback for a second time in the classroom. So then parent contacts. So we will support teachers to make parent contact. And we will sit with them if they want us to do that, or work with them on how they can do that, what's the best method. Failure to comply with the push-in or pull-out response will move the disciplinary action to a moderate level, and the responding staff member, which will be one of the student support team, will document it and have the teacher fill out a discipline report as soon as possible. So if they have a third minor infraction in a quarter, that's going to initiate a moderate response. So this is how we're tracking it, is using that spreadsheet. So say I've gone into Mrs. Smith's classroom for too much talking during class, and a couple days later I have to go into Mr. Jones's classroom for not being on task, and then 2 weeks later I have to go into Mrs. Wilson's class for saying, oh my gosh, this assignment is just ridiculous, or whatever. On the third time, then we go ahead and pull that kid out of class and initiate a moderate level response and documentation. So what are mid-level moderate behaviors? These are not defined in the handbook. And one thing that we really wanted to do was define them. So a moderate is defined as engaging in moderate level of inappropriate verbal or nonverbal communication. And that looks like profanity said in frustration due to difficulty on an assignment, profanity or inappropriate gestures directed at other students in jest or in a non-confrontational way, and profanity that's not minor. And that's up to the discretion of the teacher. Defiance, disrespect, and noncompliance. A moderate is defined. Student engages in moderate intensity failure to respond to adult requests. This looks like they ignore directives more than 3 times. They use mild disrespectful language or action directed at a staff or other students. Arguing with a staff member after being redirected. Deliberate refusal to obey a member of the school staff. So just basic obstinance. Disruption. A moderate is defined as a student engages in low intensity but inappropriate disruption. And that looks like loud talking during lesson or seat time. Being out of their seat without permission and talking with other students, so disrupting their learning. Throwing things across the room, having no contact with other students. Angry outbursts that do not involve directed profanity. Lying. A moderate is defined. Student engages in moderate intensity dishonest behavior. This looks like dishonesty that is owned and the student immediately admits to when called on it. Destruction of school property. A moderate is defined as engaging in low-level misuse of property, like writing on a desk or a wall. Profanity or inappropriate gestures directed at other students. I don't know why that's still in there. That's an error, because that's already in the last page. So we'll just leave it on the last page. Okay, inappropriate location, out of bounds area. A moderate is defined as the students in an authorized area of the campus, but without permission from the teacher or other school staff. So that looks like a student is in the gym, the cafeteria, the library, or other location without permission for a brief period of time. The student is in an unsupervised location during lunch or class time for a brief period of time. Physical contact, a moderate is defined as non-serious but inappropriate physical contact, like unsafe physical horseplay, pushing and shoving. Interpersonal conflict, a moderate is defined as a second incident of interpersonal conflict involving the same person that is reported and mediated. So the second time a student comes to us and says, I'm having a problem with this person, and we've had a conversation with that person before, the second time it's a little bit more problematic. So students having an argument with each other, students reporting name calling or minor conflict, mean or rude behavior directed at a different student than the first report. So it's continued same behavior. Other behaviors, any moderate level behavior that is not listed, repeated minor behavior, minor level behavior at such intensity that it raises it above the level of minor behavior, and that's at staff determination. So moderate level behavior response will initiate a pullout. So the responding staff member, when hearing that it's a moderate level response, will pull the student out of class to the office, and we will go through a reflection interview about what's going on with them, why they're behaving that way in class, what they're going to do differently next time. And we will ask the staff member to also meet with us the next day on their planning time or later that day to discuss the incident, to figure out what needs to happen in the classroom, and to levy some expectations on that student from that staff member for what's going to work. So the responding staff member and the teacher will call the student's parent or guardian to discuss the incident and to initiate an opportunity for the student to participate in an after-school restorative-based time with the school social worker. So when a student gets a moderate level behavior, they are going to have a detention, period. They and their parents get to pick what kind of detention that's going to be. So it can be a restorative-based time with the school social worker where Peggy or Nick works with them through their conflict with the teacher, helps them figure out some replacement behaviors, how to avoid that behavior, what's going on, and it does require that the student agrees to meet with the teacher to discuss it and to come up with a better plan. But if the parent declines that, then the student's going to be assigned to a detention in accordance with the behavior. Sometimes it could be more significant depending on the level of the moderate infraction or if there have been multiple moderate infractions. So we will ask that the student and teacher meet with the responding staff or school social worker at the conclusion of the after-school reflection to do a plan, and then we'll provide a report to the parent or guardian about how that went. Documentation will be done by the responding staff member, and failure on the part of the student to comply with the response will move the disciplinary action to a major level. So, this is really important. The third moderate infraction in a semester. So if we have to go pull a kiddo out of class 3 times in a semester, we'll initiate a major level response and a referral for a positive behavior intervention and supports plan for success. The third moderate infraction with removal from class in the same class in a quarter may result in removal from the class for the remainder of the grading period, and that's by state law and policy. If a teacher requests a formal removal of a student 3 times, then they will be removed for the remainder of the grading period. So high-level major behaviors are defined as inappropriate language, engaging in verbal abuse, name-calling, racial or ethnic slurs, derogatory statements addressed publicly to others that precipitate disruption of the school program or incite violence, directing profanity, vulgar language, or obscene gestures toward other students, school personnel, or visitors to the school. Inappropriate verbal conduct intended or likely to upset, distract, or annoy others, such as name-calling, teasing, or baiting. Repeated or extreme inappropriate verbal conduct likely to disrupt the educational environment, particularly when others are talking, such as a lecture by a teacher, response by other students, or presentation by a visitor, or during quiet study time. Disruption. A major is defined. Repeated interference with the school's ability to provide educational opportunities to other students. Other behavior likely or intended to sabotage or undermine classroom instruction. Loud, obnoxious, or outrageous behavior, disruptive, dangerous, or unruly behavior. Defiance, disrespect, and noncompliance. A major is defined as continued willful disobedience or open and persistent defiance of proper authority, including repeated deliberate refusal to obey a member of the school staff. Conduct that otherwise interferes with the ability of the teacher to teach effectively. Open defiance of the teacher, manifest in words, gestures, or other overt behavior. Open disrespect of the teacher, manifest in words, gestures, or other overt behavior. Inciting other students to act inappropriately or to disobey the teacher or school or class rules. Throwing items and causing bodily harm to another person. Lying. A major is defined as lying or giving false information, either verbally or in writing, to a school employee. And this is in situations, for instance, where we're investigating something and we need students to be truthful with us about what's going on. And we find out later that maybe they lied to us in the course of that. So that becomes pretty major. Assault, fights, physical contact, and aggression. Major is defined as the act of striking or touching a person or that person's property with the body or any other object with the intent of causing hurt or harm. And the important piece here is the intent piece. It's easy to distinguish that when somebody punches somebody else. It's not as easy to distinguish if they're pushing each other. So intent to cause hurt or harm. Inappropriate physical contact intended or likely to hurt, distract, or annoy others, such as hitting, biting, pushing, shoving, poking, pinching, or grabbing that is egregious in nature. Bullying and harassment. A major is defined as the use of coercion or intimidation to obtain control over another person or to cause physical, mental, or emotional harm to another person through written, verbal, or electronically transmitted expression or by means of a physical act or gesture. Behavior that may constitute sexual or other harassment. Destruction of school or personal property. A major is defined. The student causes or attempts to cause damage to the school or private property that is of value, destroying or damage the property of the school, the teacher, or another student. Lying or giving false information either verbally or in writing to a school employee, especially when such dishonesty is intended to harm another student or staff member by making false claims or wrongdoing or denying wrongdoing. Any other violation of the student code of conduct established by district policy. So some of these were previously defined in the handbook, and some of them are in the policy about formal removals from the classroom. And so that was not in the handbook prior to now, but it is in this process. So formal removal. Upon arrival at the classroom, the responding staff member will be notified by the teacher that the behavior is a major level behavior. The student will go with the responding staff member to the office to reflect and work on the assignment for the class. The student will be removed from classes for the remainder of the day at a minimum. The teacher will submit a written report of the entire behavior episode as soon as possible. The principal, only the principal will respond to high-level major behaviors. If this responding staff member gets there and the teacher says it's major, then that comes directly to my office. If I am not here, that will come directly to Scott. If Scott is not here, it will go to Gary Livick. It will only be the certificated administrator who is working on discipline at this level. The teacher will submit a written report. The principal will call the student's parent or guardian to discuss the incident, to discuss the consequences for the high-level major behavior. These include, but are not limited to, 1 to 5 days of in-school suspension, 1 to 5 days of out-of-school suspension, a recommendation for expulsion. If in-school suspension, the principal will communicate via email with the parent daily. Responding staff member will document behavior on the shared spreadsheet for purposes of tracking and intervention, and the discipline incident will be logged in PowerSchool. If the consequence for the major behavior is not an expulsion, and there are some things that are automatically an expulsion, the principal will initiate a referral to the PBIS team for a plan for success. A re-entry meeting to develop this plan will be required for the student to return to class. Teachers will be requested to attend the development meeting. Teachers will be required to review an initial receipt of the plan, goals, and interventions, and to submit a weekly progress monitoring report to the assigned caseworker, which will be a school social worker, the advising specialist, or myself. Failure to comply with their PBIS plan for success and further high-level major behaviors may result in a habitually disruptive designation and expulsion. 3 high-level major responses in a school year will result in a recommendation for expulsion. Law enforcement contact. Responding staff will notify the principal immediately of major behaviors. If the behavior is criminal, the principal will initiate law enforcement contact via a report to the school resource officer, including but not limited to alcohol possession, use, or distribution, tobacco possession, use, or distribution, weapons possession, robbery, theft of a value of over $20, assault, intimidation, or harassment. We have added this next one, complicity, knowingly participating in an act that could have been prevented by failing to report knowledge of the intended action of another or allowing such an act to happen without taking action to get help to intervene. or other criminal offense. The school will participate fully with providing law enforcement with any information regarding such offenses that take place on school property or at school events. So within this model, we have 3 tiers of support that is not just for students and parents, but is also for teachers. At tier 1, on both sides, we are going to have high behavioral expectations for our students. We are going to have clear communication. We are going to have regular check-ins with teachers, parents, and students. Minimal need for disciplinary support and minimal disruption. This will work for 85% of our kids in the model that we're presenting here. If we have teachers who are consistently needing help, we also need to reach out to them with some support and teach them some different skills or additional skills to help them with their classroom management, so that they will have the minimal need for disciplinary support. I'm currently teaching a classroom management class to 10 teachers, pre-K through 12, and we'll be teaching another one over the summer, and we'll be teaching another one in the fall. Some teachers are required to take that class. It's part of their evaluation recommendations. Some teachers are not required to take that class, but reach out for help and come take the class. And there are teachers who are sitting here this evening who are taking that class and have taken that class, and I'm sure that during the discussion portion of this, they'd be happy to share with you about that. And training for all teachers in utilizing restorative justice or restorative response principles. The first one of those is how to verbally de-escalate. So if you're in a classroom and something's going on, and the situation is elevating with every exchange, how do you verbally de-escalate that kid? And the first thing that you have to do is you have to have relationships. So we need to really focus on relationships with students. So tier 2, which will work for an additional 10 to 12% of our students, is moderate behavior intervention training for kids and parents and teachers, targeted classroom management support based on data, more frequent communication and check-ins with students and supporting staff. And at the top, right here, specific and targeted intervention and a support plan for behavior success. And then a specific targeted intervention and support plan for classroom management for the teacher if that's what's necessary. So there is a flow chart. It's got a lot of flowing on it. So we start up here. Student, classroom, or school misbehavior. Minor number 1, push in or pull out, the student returns to class as soon as possible. Minor number 2, push in or pull out, the student returns to class as soon as possible. Minor number 3, we're going to go over here to a moderate response. So number 1, pull out, the student returns to class the next day. Number 2, a pull out, the student returns to class the next day. If we have 3 of these in the same semester, that's a major response. We're going to refer to PBIS. Okay, major number 1, a pull out, initiate the appropriate consequences. And like I said, this will either be a day or up to 5 days for the first offense. Major number 2, same thing, likely to be a suspension. Major number 3, in the same year, we will initiate expulsion proceedings. The only time that this does not carry through on the third major offense is if a student is on an IEP and has a behavioral disability. If a student is on an IEP and we have to initiate expulsion proceedings, we do go ahead and suspend for the 5 days. We do go ahead and make the recommendation for that expulsion. Within 5 days after that, we have to have what's called a manifestation hearing. And in that hearing, we have to determine as a team, it's the entire IEP team. Sarah Harmeyer is right here and can answer questions about that. She's our school psychologist. And that is a hearing where the BOCES director comes over, we go through the process of some paperwork, and if that behavior is found to have been what's called a manifestation of the student's disability, which basically means they have a disability that causes them to behave in that way, we cannot by law expel that student from school. So we can do an alternative placement, And we have done that on several occasions, and we provide support and learning for that student, sometimes off campus, sometimes in a private room on campus where they're just with an adult. But it is required by the law. If it is a manifestation of disability, we cannot expel a kid. If we expel a student, we are still required by law to provide their educational services. So if we expel a kiddo and they're at home, we have to provide them a tutor. We have to provide them curriculum. We have to pay for it. So those are things that are part of the law, and they're not very convenient, but we do have to do that. It's part of our requirements. If a student is put on a PBIS plan for success, we establish the behavioral goals and we write the plan, and there's a caseworker assigned. So that will be either Peggy, myself, Nick, or Jen Stark. We send out a weekly progress report of goals, and there's a weekly check-in with the caseworker. Then every 6 weeks, we review the goals with the teacher, the parent, the student, and the PBIS team, revise if needed. That means that they're successfully achieving those goals, but maybe something else has come up, so we do add different goals. If they fail to follow the plan, and we do not suspect that they have a disability, then we go ahead and initiate expulsion proceedings. If they fail to follow the plan, but we do suspect they have a disability, we are again required by law to refer them for ESS evaluation. So we can place them off campus, but we still have to go through this evaluation process. If the plan is successfully followed, after 18 weeks, we will exit the student from that plan. So that is the draft plan. We are eagerly anticipating your feedback. So the plan after this workshop is for Peggy and I to spend a couple hours, the next couple of days, to go through the feedback and find common threads through the feedback. And take that feedback to Dr. Cooper, to Nick, to Jen, and put that out there and say, what do we need to change in this plan based on the feedback that we received at this meeting? Put those changes in there. The next Friday, the staff is going to go through this same process with us that you're going through tonight. And we will make changes and recommendations based on their feedback. And then that will be brought back to the board for another look and some implementation and working through the kinks for the remainder of the school year before we ask the board to approve it as part of the handbook. So.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, we're going to move into the next part of our activity here. Thank you, Jen Huffman. Thank you, Peggy Pine, for helping with this, walking through all this information. If you're standing up here, you may want to join a table group over there. There are big pieces of paper all across these tables with guiding questions. The very first question we're going to focus on is, what did you see here that you think will be successful? What did you see here that you think will work? So in your groups, you got about 15 minutes. Go ahead and write down everything you think that will be successful that you saw in this presentation. Thank
open up and down and start looking at it.
Yes, I'd like to look at all like the little grab wires through it. Yeah, that's like running electricity has been the worst experience of my life. And I've been through like a couple years. Like that's how bad it is. Like I'm gonna be like this over and you knew what you were doing and be okay. Yeah, no
I know, he's like, I see you. I told Chief about saying we shall turn around. Oh, I feel like
Real quick public announcement here. The third grade teachers over here would like to save all water bottles. So please don't crush your water bottles. Use water bottles. Just leave them or with Meg right over here. She's bagging them up. She needs the water bottles for the students tomorrow. Thank you for writing down and moving on to question 1 and question 2 and 3. Most everybody got through all 3. Thank you for doing that. At this time, I'm going to ask one person from each table group to take number 1 and go ahead and stick it up on the wall right over here. Somebody else in your table group, stick it up on the wall right over here. All of this information comes back to student groups, comes back to principal advisory groups, and then it's incorporated into the plan, and draft plan actually back to the school board this spring. You have an announcement about something for parents to learn.
So I have had a couple parents and folks say to me, how can you learn the social emotional stuff if they're interested? I have a 7 Mindsets training on April 19th here in the library at 5:15. It is an opportunity to engage with this concept. I'm not lecturing, I'm not teaching it, I'm doing it with you and the kids. And it's not just for parents. These kids will get points in their colors classes if they bring you with them. The activities I do in the classroom mindsets can be done in the home, and I would like to teach that stuff with you guys. It's just creating that opportunity to create dreams and conversation with kids on how you can build their dreams with them. So if you guys want to come, April 19th, I have the door open and come and learn some mindset stuff.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Dee Prock, our board president.
So we have a lot of class, and we have some other things to talk about, some other issues. What I'd like to do is, and I've had a lot of people say they want to voice some concerns of time doing that, and I really, really want to emphasize how much I want everyone to respect each other and to please follow the same rules we do in our board meetings in reference to not utilizing individuals' names, students or employees, and that we keep that in order, or I will just adjourn the meeting, because I really want us to focus on being able to communicate together in a respectful way. So we're going to head, I don't know, over here, I guess, or we'll just be out here if there's someone that has something.
Say it, but shoot. Answer your raise your hand. We'll just ask questions. I'll speak.
Okay, I've been in the school district for 15 years with my kids. I have never, ever been so disappointed in this school district until the last couple of years. There's been things that have happened that has put our kids in harm's way. That our staff, our administration has known what's going to happen and has let it happen, and that has encouraged it. As a coach, I try to follow Chatham rules. When we went to a state competition in Denver, our cheer team competed. I don't know about the other sports, but for cheer and dance, your coach has to be certified and has to go to a meeting that lasts its class for 2 days. Without the certification, your team cannot stunt. They cannot do certain things that put the kids in jeopardy. The cheer coach was unable to, as a first year coach, was unable to do that this year. I take mine and have, except the first year because I started too late. Because that cheer coach wasn't able to do that, it was left up to the AD to step into that box as a certified coach so that that team can compete and can stunt, which is part of the competition. When we got there, we were told that our AD had talked to Chesapeake and that it was okay for our cheer coach to stand in the box, that he was not going to do it. And I said, that's not the way the rules go. And he said, oh no. I told him that you trained her. Yes, there is a class that you can take to train that other coach. I've never taken it. And I said, that's not right. He said, no, she will go in the box, I will not do it. Okay, for me, that's putting those kids at risk. If those kids, that team, would have made it in the top 4, they would have been disqualified. What is that showing our kids? That it's okay to lie? Why was that person not held accountable? Where is that in all of this? Our kids are supposed to be held accountable, but we're not? That doesn't work for me. I'm sorry, I'm not a complainer. If I have an issue, I have never really done any complaining. I take care of it. I have been to the administration office to speak about my issues several times and been put off. I'm not doing it anymore. We have lost coach after coach after coach that has coached in this district that of a sudden this year, they weren't wanted. And I was like, okay, did you retire? No, they told me my job was not available. I'm sorry. It's not just academic. There's a lot of these kids that are being hurt because of what issues are not being taken care of. My daughter's a senior this year. I've had people tell me, well, why is it your problem? I've got a lot invested in this school. I'm not giving up on these kids yet. And if I have to be here next year, 5 o'clock, I'll be here. But I'm going to stop right there to let somebody else speak. I will be at the school board meeting.
Thank you, Deb.
So it hurt me quite a bit to put my son through school. Lose financial hold of my kids from school. And it comes down to what special ed is being missed. And it's hard for me because I'm supposed to school. I love a lot of people here. And I talked to Solin because somebody I was not advised that you guys pulled the special ed teacher out of that classroom and up with hair. His grades plummeted. He came to play basketball because I cried. I was really angry by that. I put up with all the bullying in football, sports, you name it. I draw a line when you mess with my kid's grade. And then you weren't going to give my son a credit for math because he was on algebra. Okay, he was not going to get his credit for Algebra 1. I was done. He's got a 3.1 right now in Cortez and been there for 3 weeks. And that's all I'm going to say. Fix the special ed because there's many other here that need it. And that's why I'm here even though I pulled my kid.
Everybody knows who I am because I spoke at the last town board and school board. I don't see town board. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. Anyways, we as a community, after that meeting, want the school board to feel like everything that we said, that I said, that everybody else said, went in one ear and right out the other. That's how a lot of us still feel. That's all I want to say.
I would respond to that I feel that we are volunteers, and as a school board, we put a lot of time and energy and commitment into school, what's going on in the school, and I do feel like I understand that when you say something, you might feel like you're not being heard, but you are being heard. Collectively, you're being heard.
I want to say something too. One thing that we are learning in the school is not to react, but to respond. You are not going to get an immediate answer from me. You'll never get an immediate answer. And I will always come back to you and say I have to gather more information. That is my common go-to. But that does not mean I'm not listening. And we are working as a team. That document up there was 2 weeks worth of work. Because we listened to you guys and we know that we can't be behind the door anymore. We have to be transparent. Most of this stuff is kind of common stuff that's in your policy book. We're helping process it so that it's not so overwhelming. Somebody already told me it's too complicated. It is complicated for you as parents to see how we have to go through this process. But we are going to take this feedback. My goal for the next week is to sit down and look at all this information with Jen, with Nick, with the other Jen, and really make a better plan again.
And I do as a community and as a member and all of us together, we want to thank the school board. We want to say we appreciate the time, the effort, the hours that you have put in, the years you have put in. There's people that didn't want to do it. There's straight up a whole room full of people that don't want to do it. So we appreciate the time and the energy that you have put into the board.
I feel like you guys have members of your board that truly are committed to the school and have a lot of things to offer. I've gotten to know each of them now, and it's really amazing what they have to offer in education, what they have to offer in innovation, what they have to offer for early intervention. I understand there's some very angry people. We hear that. We do hear that collectively. We do understand there's a cry for change, and we hear that. And just because you feel like, some of you might feel like you want that change, and you want this, and that now, you want it all now, it doesn't always work that way. And I want you guys to try to trust that we hear it, and we are understanding, and we hear it from multiple sides. It's not just the people yelling the loudest or...
But I mean, we shouldn't have to worry about it just this year whenever it's going down. Our school has been the greatest for the past few years. I mean, just because it's not because we just want to change right now, it's just because we're finally getting heard, we're finally having these discussions. But I mean, and I totally understand the school board is an elected committee and you guys have lives outside of this, but I mean, this isn't just for you guys, I mean, it's about the students, and we need to have our voices be heard. We need to be understood and talked to as well. Okay, and honestly, I haven't, and many students I think can agree, we haven't seen much change, and we don't want it, we want it now. We want our school to be a better place. We want to be proud of the place we are.
Focus to and what you don't. Across the board, there needs to be a concerted effort to address all of those, and trust is earned. It's earned.
It's not that they haven't been listening before this meeting. I'm brand new. I came in October to answer these situations. These were incidents that I was hired to address, that Nick was hired to address. We're not magic workers, we can't do it in 4 months. But we are listening to you so that next year we have a better plan. And the next year after that, it's going to grow. The person,
I'm going to address athletics, so if you want to address before me, I'll let you.
I just see this here, all of these walls is about our children, and that is our #1 priority. But how many parents have a concern with the administration? I don't see anything on these walls that addresses that. It's our children. Our administration has to fix it too. And I don't see anything about our administration on these walls. So you want our input on paper, but where's that on paper from us? I don't see it anywhere. And you're not asking. You're not doing. There's children that have to be accountable for inappropriate behavior, but administration can get away with it. When our children learn it, it's okay to do that.
Yeah, I'm totally there. I was standing outside and I was just watching people leave after leave after leave because they got told that we were here to talk about the administration and talk about that. And I understand this workshop is going to be great and you guys are going to take that into consideration. Or I hope you guys take it into consideration. But they don't want to be treated like they're back in high school. They're adults. They don't want to write on sticky notes with markers. No, I don't know, but I didn't want to do that. And so it's one of those things. Like we're here to talk about administration and that problem. Yes, I'm a student. If I mess up, I want to be held accountable. Period. And I hold myself accountable, as do a lot of the students here. But when we're not put in this situation to be held accountable, how do you expect us to be held accountable?
This format that we use tonight is used across the board in all kinds of adult formats with councils, boards, etc. And it was recommended by our state association to do it in this format because there is a lot of people with a lot of voice. It gets more voice out there. We have a lot of things written on these walls, and a lot to reflect on. And so I do think that this format is not abnormal for a situation or a meeting like this to accomplish the task, right?
Jared, do you want to go next, sir? Yeah, well, it's up to you. I'm going to talk about that, a couple of things, questions for athletics. Let me go first. I was thank you, sir. The first thing, my name's Mike Almond. I have 3 students who attend school here, also teachers here for 15 years. I think the very first thing I'd like to say is that our school district is very lucky to have this people come out tonight. And someone had said, it's our kids. Of course, that's our number one concern, is our students and our kids and their kids' safety. So, number one, I think our school's really lucky to have that. Secondly, we had, I think in the last election, 7 people on the board. When you look across the state, a lot of school districts struggle to fill their school boards. So those members that do go from our community on the board, that's great. It's a very tough position. One of the other things I just want to think about is Senate Bill 191. This was a piece of legislation that was passed a few years ago that puts an evaluation place for every teacher annually, and I believe that's every administrator on a biannual or 3-annual evaluation of their performance. This was hashed out at state level of, you know, we do this, do we not, it's part of the school law. And so the concerns for administrators, there's a way to follow that, and I would hate to see tonight the positiveness about keeping our kids safe and having a discipline plan to follow. That shouldn't take priority if there are concerns about what administrators are doing, but let's make sure we follow the right format to do that, to come to results and not just turn it into, you know, a witch hunt for administrators. I want to see productivity, and there are ways if you don't know how to file a complaint against a teacher or something, ask the school board, ask the district office. There's a means to do this. Thank you.
I would hope that these discipline concerns also apply to kids riding the bus, because I hear a lot of bad behavior that goes on the bus. And that as soon as any one of the oldest of the family can drive, the kids who get picked on and bullied are off the bus.
I agree, there is some stuff happening too on the bus, and I was going to bring that to Jen later. It starts at the bus and then it comes to the school, and our bus drivers don't feel supported. I heard that 2 weeks ago. So you're right, something else needs to be back up Larry and the team so that they know we should hold kids accountable on the bus too. Once they get that bus, they're ours.
You've been paid to say it.
No, I'm good. I'm going to talk about that with athletics. I moved my son here when he was 7 years old. A lot of you parents, I've coached a lot of your kids and this and that. I got a son that's going to be a sophomore in high school. He loved baseball, loved to play football, sports. The only time he's been eligible at this school is when he played sports, because he lives for that. Well, he came to me, I want to say about, 3 months ago and said, Dad, I'm not playing football. I said, why are you playing football? I mean, you've been playing since you were 3 years old. Why aren't you going to play? Oh, just don't want to play. Trying to get an answer from him. And I'm not going to go into that answer or not. But the question I'm asking you as school board, have you sat down and asked, you know, I've been hearing all these excuses. We don't have numbers for a football program. We don't have kids playing. Oh, we need to get out of Chassa because, oh, they're losing. They don't want to lose. Well, do you know the ramifications? If you take these kids out of Chassa and go independent, my son being a sophomore, let's say they go out as his junior year and they have a great year, or even as a sophomore year, they all of a sudden play immaculately and say they go 8-2. They can't even go to the state playoffs. They can't go play in the state championship. They don't even get an opportunity to excel, because as a school, the answer was, we'll take them out of Chassa and we'll go independent, because that'll get our numbers up. Have any of you sat down and asked the kids? I've asked a ton of the freshman class. I've asked some of the seniors. I've asked some of the guys that are afraid to say anything, because, oh man, if I say something, I might not get a play. If I say something, I'm going to get called in and talked to, or those kind of things. So my suggestion to you, when you look at school has academics, sports, extracurricular stuff going on, writing, speech, all those things. That's what makes you a complete student. I mean, I played at the next level. I got to go and do that. And sports was everything to me. My parents had sports when I was 10, and my sports was my outlet. I went to school, I got the grades. I'm not a best grade student. I mean, tell me, I mean, I did enough so I could play. But when I got on the field, that was my world. I learned a lot on that field. I learned how to deal with aggression, learned how to deal with being in confrontation, learning how to addressing those problems. I think is the best way to explain it. But when we have a program here that we're getting kids that are falling off and we're losing kids every year, it's not the kids don't want to play. I'm telling you, if you sit and ask them, I took a bunch of them skiing this off during spring, and I said, why are you guys playing football, man? You guys were good when you guys played as a group. They didn't want to talk to me at first. And then I sat there and I pressed them a little bit. I said, guys, I don't care. I'm not going to go call your dad. I'm not going to tell your mom. I said, just tell me why you want to play. I'm curious. I want to know. I ran for school board. I want to know why you don't want to play. Talk to me. And then when they opened up, you'll be surprised on what you hear. It's not they don't want to play. It's they really want to play. They just have other issues they want to address, and they're afraid they're not heard. And so my big suggestion to you guys as administration, even or as a school board, is pull your students away. Don't bring a principal in. Don't bring an athletic director in. Don't bring your superintendent in. Bring your students in. And just talk to them and say, hey, this is an open forum to you. You guys talk to us. You don't let anybody else sit in there. Just you guys as a board. Ask them what they want. And then ask them those questions. So honestly, I think you'll be really surprised on what you find out and what you hear. And I know you're talking next week on April 12th, you're bringing up bowing out of CHSA. I'm going to tell you, I highly suggest against it. That's not the problem. The kids don't care if they win or lose. I'm going to tell you right now, yeah, winning's great. The kids want to play, and the kids want a chance to succeed. CHSA's not the problem. I'm going to tell you this right now. Listening to the kids talk, there's other issues, and pulling them out, not giving them a chance to excel and go play at another level. You got kids in here that can go to college and play ball. You go to an independent league, that ruins their chances of being recruited. That ruins their chances of being seen. So take this all into consideration when it comes to making those decisions. And like I said, remember, it's not just academics, it's not just behavior. You know, you have a bunch of kids playing sports and doing extracurricular things, the behavior starts falling in line with it. Because I'm going to tell you what, if you have a student here and they're acting out, and he has no outlet because he don't want to play for this reason or that reason, or I don't have any other motivation, you write everything you want on the wall, that isn't going to change that student. But if you give that kid something to work for, you're in there and he's saying, okay, I want to play. I want to do this. My son did something really stupid. You know, I'm bringing you up because you know about it. But he did something really stupid. But you know what he did do? He never quit. And he was ineligible for 6 weeks, didn't play. The football team, the guys that were there know all about it. He talked to them. But my thing is, he never quit. And his behavior was impeccable during football season. Yep, and so what I'm getting at is you've got to look at that as a big picture. Please look at the whole thing and not just one aspect or another. Remember, it all works together.
When they took the right of the parents and the teachers, corrected away from those kids, that's when you lost. They cannot correct those kids at home, and you can't do it at school. So that's the back.
How we do it. There's ways of doing that, right? You can't do it the ways you know how in the past.
We've been going to them. They're the ones who took it away.
Well, that's what I said, you have to go to a government level for that one. That's something we unfortunately can't solve here.
We have respect, and our education we have a lot of respect in our ears, and it needs to come back. It does.
I'm there with you. I had that. I had little my nuns with yardsticks, and they took care of it.
Part of it is trust too, and so until the kids trust us, they're not going to respect us. Trust and respect go hand in hand, and so we are rebuilding that communication and trust and what that looks like. We're talking about the word respect, and how do we respect you, you respect us. So that is a conversation that has to be asked.
I really appreciate what you guys did tonight with this forum, and we talked about discipline and ways to deal with this. and I think you have a plan now. The only thing I would say is, please add drug to that list of alcohol.
Thank you, that was mentioned.
That was a big omission on my part, so I thought that would be in there.
The other thing is, it's, you know, we have a policy, and I think the problem is we just need to stick to it and follow it.
Right.
So now this gives you some more guidance, but let's follow through, let's do these things. I mean, it makes sense to me, it's a little vague on whether it's a minor or a major, a nothing or
Or complicated, or
yeah, it's a little complicated there, what's awful. But the other thing I have to address, and I think there's some people here that want to say this, and the student alluded to it, but there is a problem, and it lies within our school board. I went to that last meeting. I went to the last meeting, and I stayed in the back, and I didn't have much to say, and I watched. You know, when the mob gets out of control, I don't want to be part of that. I'm not joining it. But in that meeting, Mr. Wilson made a motion to continue that conversation at the next special meeting, which was to be held April 4th. Now, you as the board of directors of Dolores Public Schools unanimously voted to do that. And then an agenda was set, which took this meeting in not an unpositive direction, but in a different direction. Now, you as the school board set that agenda, and when you do that, I would like to see a little bit follow through and go in that direction and stay with the agenda. Don't let it be derailed by your employees or anybody else. This has all been fine. And this could have been a small part of this discussion, not an hour and a half. And I think you did a disservice to the community, the voters, people like me who don't even have children. Because I came down here tonight expecting a different discussion. And as I said, this is all well and good. But you as a board of directors set the agenda, and it was derailed.
When we look back, at that, we definitely were discussing an issue of discipline. And we were discussing, and that was a large focus of that. And at the time when we talked about setting this meeting, we discussed it being related to the discipline plan and what it is and what is done. And that was discussed in that meeting at that time. So yes, we did
As
put a
I've
focus.
said, this meeting did sort of touch on that idea, but we've gone in a different direction. And the other issue that came out of that meeting was from the policy that we do have. Has there been any corrections made in the discipline that was applied to the previous situation? Have there been any corrections made to that disciplinary situation? That's what people want to know. Or is that all in one ear and out the other? Somebody mentioned earlier tonight. Is that issue over?
Are you talking about the assault?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to discuss details. I want to know, was it correct and there was a more appropriate punishment applied? Or is it done? That was it.
I think there's some legal stuff that's coming up on it, but it's not anything that we can...
No, I didn't want to discuss it. I said that at the end. I just want to make sure that I'm more focused. It is.
It's processed, without address.
Good. Thank you.
And thanks for bringing
That's
that
one
up.
of the answers these people wanted.
And thank you for everybody standing up and saying, thank you. When I ran 2.5 years ago, nobody ran. So keep that in mind for future too, is I was hoping for that. And that's what I'm here. And not that I don't want to be, I want to be here. But I do think, I think it's, like Clay said, it's very encouraging. There's a lot of enthusiasm and we're feeling it. And it's not, we're not taking it as bad. We're taking it in a good way. At least I feel like as a board, that's what we're doing. So thank you for all that enthusiasm. We can call it, for something collective enthusiasm or something shared enthusiasm, but it's truly what it is. And I thank you for that. So,
Jill, were you first?
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Ladies first.
Well, I'm going to stand over and sit on my feet. As you see, I'm packing this bag here. My bike started about 7 years ago, 6 years ago. In this bag, Wendy loves my bag. This is the policies. This is policies that that board broke. Every page in here is a policy that that board did not follow through on. We filed a civil lawsuit. It went to mediation. And through that mediation, a plan was formed. The board was to have workshops like this. Every 3 months, the community was to get together, be involved, participate. Granted, during that time I moved away, so everything just went by the wayside. 7 years is a long time to wait for policies to be enforced. We have seen our school go from the top to the bottom. And you can tell me how many times that those numbers don't count. Those are facts. My theory is, this is just my personal theory, my personal belief. I don't care if we have 20% kids that are failing. That is 20% of those kids that we need to help. Every student in this school needs to be able to walk out this door and be an active adult, know how to interact, know what is 8 times 8? 64. Very good, yay! Our kids are failing, and we don't want that. We started to see that. We need everyone's help to get this back on track. But I'm saying 7 years is too long. Policies are here. We need to follow these policies. And Dee, as far as you running the school board, I would have been there, but I had moved, so I was out of district.
I was wondering where you were. I was like,
where am I?
What happened?
And during that time, we did fight a good fight, and I take it personally that I feel like I failed, because we are where we are now. The young lady here is my daughter. I'm very proud that she went through this school. She was able to stand up and speak. All my children are that way because we have a wonderful school. Our kids were top in this school. So what do you say? What do we need to do?
You said 7 years there?
7 years.
I think there's a common nucleus for the last 7 years.
7 years.
Certainly is.
Thank you. So, the second part.
Can I just ask that Hal can speak, because he was next to speak? Hal, please. We want to hear Susan speak. Come on.
So this is all a different side of it. I want to first state that this isn't with the I Am group, because we got a nasty old letter about an independent student in our group saying something that does not reflect our total views of the group. So this is me on my own as a student. It's going to hit on what Debbie said, and a lot of us have thought is there's one person missing here tonight that's been missing in the last school board meetings that has created a lot of drama in our school. Personally, created a lot of drama for myself. Where's our athletic director? last year were scared to say anything because we knew he had power to ruin not only our seasons, but everything else. That man lied about my personal belonging in the school and in sports, lied about where I was with CHASA. A lot of us feel the same way. Why is he not here? Because just as any student that takes college classes, if they can stand up, not do their homework, and be here, why cannot someone that has extreme power in our school not be here? Where is that man? Where's someone that has bullied each and every one of us almost? Where is someone, or where is he when we all have struggled with him? Yes.
The real question is, why is he still employed with the school district?
Amen.
That's the real question.
Was playing football, and the second year in a row was told this year, didn't come to me, went to Debbie after CHASA, because he was told he could not practice with the cheer team, or even see he could not play the rest of the sports the rest of the year. My son has been bullied not by just some of the kids on that team, but some of the adults. And I've had it. And when it came to the grade, I'm done. You mess with my kids' grades, that's it.
My question is, on Tressler, why did he get a $10,000 raise before a parent?
That's your school board.
I don't have my gavel, but that's my gavel. Okay, this is where we hear it, but you don't have to scream and you don't have to yell and you don't have to not follow the rules.
Can you answer that question?
I can't, no, we can't talk about, we cannot talk about personal.
It's legal.
What is going.
It's legal. You can't do this in a forum, fire someone. It's not legal.
I didn't say fire. You just asked where he was.
I'm a new school board member, so I would like to, I know we're wrapping up, to address the concern that school board members aren't hearing. And I understand it might look that way. I think though that last board meeting, there were a lot of concerns, but the top concerns, and I might be wrong, the top concerns had to do with safety, mental, emotional, physical safety of our children. And so I think that's why we have this forum tonight. And that's not the end. We're planning more. I do also just want to say that post-Florida, we're changing nation. We, the school board members, the teachers, and certainly administrators, and all of you, we're here because we care about our kids. We're worried about safety. That's why I think we needed to start here with tonight, but it's a continued conversation, and we are listening.
Out of respect for the fact that I did set this for 6 to 8 so that I can encourage people to come, but that have families, that have other things going on, that have people that have to go to work tomorrow morning, and so I am going to keep that to the 8 o'clock time because we have more of this to come, and please.
I think it was good to have the meeting, and that certainly was a hot topic this one. In my mind, and I said this before, the disciplinary problem, if you will, to me, is an outgrowth of the decline of the district. You know, I sit here and I listen to person after person talk about the downfall of the athletic situation. The academic, obviously, are, you know, I think the test means something. They're going down. You had a school that was the in thing, that's where everybody wanted to be, is Dolores. That's no longer the case. Until you can develop a plan to restore that success, you know, academically, athletically, culturally, I think you're going to have disciplinary issues. You're always going to have it, but you're going to have more of it. So I would like a plan of how you're going to turn the district around. You know, I guess we're fine. That's a starting point. And I don't know if it's a failure of policy, if it's a failure to have your pulse on what's happening, but you know, when the athletic deal, I'm just going to use that as an example, is very out in the open, you know, it's easy to put your thumb on. When it gets to this point, it should never get to that point. You know, something should happen through management, through something before it reaches that. So if it's taking long for that to boil over, you know, changes need to happen quicker, academically, athletically, to get the school coming back. And maybe that's, you know, why you got sliding with nothing reacting to problems. To me, you know, if it boils over to where half the town's here over, I've known this athletic situation for a while, but I think everyone has. It's just not really our place to manage personnel in the district, and I'm not advocating for or against that. It's a symptom to me that there's some sort of disconnect, and I think it's happening academically, athletically, culturally, everywhere in the school. So I would like to see you set aside a lot of time. Give us your ideas. You know, we're giving you ideas all the time. You know, we have this disciplinary deal with kind of basic student handbook thing. How are you going to turn the school around? No question. How is this going to start going this way instead of just every year going this way? That's all I got.
Left, and I want to address the fact that everybody in here knows there's a recall going on. We're not stupid. Okay? And it's not personal. Some of the people have been on there 8 years, some have been on there 4. But our school in the last 8 years, and it is a fact, I am based on facts. Our school was here, and now our school is here. It is stagnant, and we need a change, and it starts with the board. It's nothing personal against anybody.
Yeah.
In my car.
I really appreciate everybody being here. I appreciate that you guys spent it on time.
You know, I did want to say how much I really value and appreciate our board. And I do know that there's some, you know, efforts on our recall from the board. And as a teacher, as a parent, as a community member, I value the board, I value our admin, and I value the colleagues that I work with. And I know that they are working so hard to provide quality, thoughtful, engaging education to your kids. And I appreciate the work that you guys are doing, and I know I'm working hard. I know my colleagues are working very hard.
And that's a big concern of us as the board, is the concern that this is going to impact our teachers, and it is impacting our teachers. But really, I feel like this is not directed towards the teachers. There's so much enthusiasm towards the food that we have, and we're so lucky to have the teachers that we have in our school. And a big part of it is trying to create an environment that you guys feel really comfortable being in and teaching in. We really want to make that a focus, because without the teachers, we have nothing. We have nothing. So thank you to the teachers, because that's really. I know you guys have a lot more comments to make, or may have some. We do have a school board meeting coming up next Thursday at 6 o'clock, and so we will be addressing a lot of issues. We'll be talking about a lot of things. Our agenda is not set yet. It won't be set until Friday morning, and so I encourage you to keep the communication going, and I encourage you to speak, collaborate, listen, learn, love, respect, all of it. Thank you. I appreciate everybody and everybody's comments tonight, and I know the board appreciates you too. So I'm going to adjourn this meeting. Can I ask about my gavel?
Well, where will that meeting be? If there's a lot of people, will you have it here with a microphone?
No, the meeting, well, the meeting as of now is scheduled for the boardroom and I don't know for sure if that's going to be the end result of it, but it is encouraged that we keep our regular meetings in the boardroom to be able to conduct business, and it's a better environment for us to be able to conduct business. So, and we do have a lot to accomplish during the meeting. So that was, again, we've really sought out information from our state and our state board on what are the most effective ways to draw in the folks from our community, but be able to also continue and complete meetings. And so in that case, they said special meetings or extra meetings that you do put in a large form. And I thought this was big enough, and it almost was. But as of now, it's going to be in the boardroom unless.
Is that required? Is it required by state for it to be in the boardroom, or is that?
No. Well, listen, I want to point out something. Look how many people left tonight that will be there on Thursday night. All of us are going to be there. All of them are going to be there.
And we can definitely evaluate that based on what is on the agenda. And I'm not opposed to that, but I do want to point out that there is a reasoning why we encourage those board meetings to be in the boardroom and to have other meetings in bigger open spaces.
The fire code is going to be limited to a certain amount of people.
60 people.
You're going to have to
Well, and as a board, we're going to have to figure that out. Keep in mind that we haven't had for 2.5. I mean, I've been on for 3.5 years, I think. Hey, 3.5. And we have never had a full board.
It's happening now.
I understand, but you have to understand our side of it is that we haven't had people come at all.
You're not respecting us.
Yeah, Deanna, please.
I would suggest, as a school board member, that we rent the community center because there's more space, there's the PA system there, there's chairs where everybody can sit, because I think we're going to have a big turnout. When I first was on the school board, we had an issue, and we had a huge turnout, and we never moved it. And I, as a school board member, I would suggest we did. That's my opinion.
I think that. Tonight at 8:03, and thank you so much
Yes. Are we still on TV?
Probably.